They said I was lucky they even let me sleep there, in my own house, the house my husband and I bought 43 years ago, the house where I raised 3 children, buried a husband, and somehow survived more heartbreak than any person should endure. My name is Patricia, and I'm 71 years old. Before I tell you what I did, before I explain how I took back everything they tried to steal from me, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this, that somewhere out there, someone understands what it feels like to become invisible in your own life. It started 18 months after Carl died, 18 months of me rattling around in our 4-bedroom colonial in Charleston, South Carolina, trying to figure out how to be a widow instead of a wife. My daughter Jessica called it an intervention. She said I couldn't possibly manage the house alone. Too many stairs, too much yard work, too much everything for a woman my age. "Mom, be reasonable," she said, sitting at my kitchen table like she owned it. Her husband Derek nodded along like one of those dashboard bobbleheads. "We're trying to help you." Help. That word became a weapon they used to justify everything that came next. They moved in temporarily. Just until they found a bigger place, Jessica said. They had 2 teenagers, Brandon and Kylie, who immediately treated my home like a college dormitory. Wet towels on antique furniture, shoes on the sofa, music thumping through walls that had only ever known the gentle sounds of jazz and occasional laughter. I told myself it was fine. Family helps family. That's what Carl would have wanted. But temporary became permanent. Months passed, then a year. They stopped looking for houses. They stopped pretending this was anything other than what it was, a takeover. "We're saving for a down payment," Jessica explained when I asked. But I saw the new cars in my driveway. I saw the designer bags and the expensive dinners out. They weren't saving. They were living rent-free in a house worth $750,000. The disrespect started small. Derek using my formal dining room as his home office, papers and coffee cups spreading across the mahogany table. Carl and I saved 3 years to buy. Jessica rearranging my kitchen, putting things where they actually make sense, Mom. Then it got worse. "Could you maybe eat dinner in your room tonight?" Jessica asked one Friday. "We're having people over and it's just easier." My room, in my house. I was being erased, one small indignity at a time. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, bacon, like I'd done for my family for 50 years. Derek walked in, looked at the plate I'd set for him, and said, "Jesus Christ, Patricia, we're trying to eat healthy. Can you not push your old person food on us?" Not Mom, not even a thank you, but no thanks. Patricia, like I was the house guest. That's when Jessica delivered the line that changed everything. "Dad, she's right. And honestly, Mom, you should be grateful. You're lucky we even let you sleep here." Let me. Sleep here? In my house? I stood at that sink, dish soap dripping from my hands, and something inside me crystallized. Not anger, exactly. Anger is hot and impulsive. This was cold, calculated, the kind of clarity that only comes when you've finally seen the truth you've been avoiding. My house. The house Carl and I bought in 1982 for $89,000. The house we poured our lives into. Carl had refinished every floor. I'd painted every wall, some of them twice. We'd replaced the roof after Hurricane Hugo in '89, paid off the mortgage early by living lean for 15 years. And now, my daughter, my firstborn, the girl I'd rocked through colic and walked through heartbreak, was telling me I should be grateful for permission to sleep under my own roof. I didn't say anything. I just dried my hands, hung up the towel, and walked to my bedroom. The smallest bedroom because they'd claimed the master suite 6 months ago. "Your knees, Mom," Jessica had said. "The stairs to our old room are too much for you." Never mind that their old room had been the master bedroom. My bedroom. The room where Carl died holding my hand. I closed the door and sat on the edge of my bed, the bed from our first apartment, the one we'd somehow kept through 6 moves and 4 decades, my hands were shaking, not from weakness, from something else entirely. Here's what they didn't know. I wasn't some confused old woman who'd lost track of her own life. I'd spent 40 years as an office manager for a law firm. I knew contracts. I knew property law. I knew exactly what needed to be done and how to do it quietly. Carl had been the gentle one, the one who always saw the best in people. But me? I was the one who read every piece of paper before signing. I was the one who kept meticulous records. I was the one who'd built an entire filing system that the partners at Morrison and Bradshaw still talked about. And I was the one whose name, and only my name, was on the deed to this house. That afternoon, while Jessica and Derek were at work and the kids were at school, I went to my filing cabinet, the one they'd shoved into the corner of the garage under some old Christmas decorations and a broken tennis racket. Inside, in a folder labeled Property Documents, I found everything I needed. The deed. Recorded in 1982. Carl and I had owned it jointly until his death, then it passed entirely to me. I'd never added Jessica's name. I'd never added anyone's name. I made copies of everything. Then I made copies of the copies. Then I opened my laptop, the one they thought I barely knew how to use, and started making phone calls. My first call was to Robert Morrison, now retired from the firm but still sharp as ever. We'd worked together for 30 years. "Patricia," he said warmly, "how are you holding up?" "I need your help," I told him, "and I need you to keep this completely confidential." There was a pause. Then, "Tell me everything." So I did. Robert listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Patricia, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly," he said. "Are you absolutely certain this is what you want to do? Because once you start this process, there's no going back. I've never been more certain of anything in my life." "All right then. Let's make sure we do this by the book. Every detail matters." Over the next week, Robert walked me through everything. We met at his house. His wife Martha made tea and disappeared upstairs to give us privacy. Robert's dining room table became our war room. "First thing," he said, spreading out documents, "we need to understand what rights they have. They're living there without a lease, which makes them tenants at will in South Carolina. You'll need to give proper notice, 30 days in writing." "They'll fight it," I said. "Let them. You own the property free and clear. They have no legal claim." He pulled out a yellow legal pad. "But we're going to be smarter than just eviction. We're going to make this airtight." Here's what they'd done over the past year, thinking I was too old or too trusting to notice. They'd switched the utilities into my name but stopped contributing to bills. My electric bill had tripled with 4 extra people in the house. My water bill had doubled. They'd promised to handle it but never did. Derek had used my address to register his business, some consulting LLC that generated mail I wasn't supposed to open. "Privacy, Mom," he'd said when I asked about it. Jessica had rerouted some of her bills to my house, including a credit card I'd accidentally opened once. She'd smiled sweetly. "Just temporary until we update our address." They'd accumulated parking tickets in Charleston, listing my address. They'd even, and this one stunned me, they'd listed Jessica as an authorized resident on documents with the HOA, implying she had some ownership stake. They're establishing residency and creating paper trails that make them look like co-owners, Robert explained. "It's not illegal exactly, but it's strategic. If this went to court, they could argue they believed they had rights to the property. But they don't." "Correct. But perception matters, Patricia. What we're going to do is create our own paper trail, one that's ironclad." We worked for hours. Robert drafted an official notice to vacate, citing my need to sell the property for health and financial reasons. We prepared a complete accounting of all utilities they'd used. We documented every conversation I could remember, every promise they'd broken. "Now," Robert said, pulling out another folder, "let's talk about the sale. You said you wanted to sell the house?" "I do. Can't stay there anymore, even after they leave. It's tainted now." He nodded. "I have a client who's been looking in your neighborhood. Commercial developer. He'd probably pay cash for a quick sale." "How quick?" "If you're serious, 30 days, maybe less." I looked at him. "I'm serious." "Then we'll time this perfectly. The notice to vacate, the sale, all of it." He smiled, something I rarely saw from him. "They won't know what hit them." The hardest part was acting normal. Every morning I made coffee and smiled when Jessica came downstairs. Every evening I sat through dinner while Derek mansplained the news to me like I hadn't been reading newspapers since before he was born. Every night I listened to Brandon's music thumping through my ceiling and bit my tongue. But I was documenting everything. I started carrying a small notebook. When Derek left his wet gym clothes on my antique settee, documented with a photo. When Kylie borrowed my car without asking and returned it with an empty gas tank, documented. When Jessica borrowed $200 from my purse for groceries, and I later found designer candles from an expensive boutique, documented. I also started being more visible around the house. Not confrontational, just present. I wanted witnesses to my own displacement. My neighbor Helen noticed. We were gardening one Saturday. Well, I was gardening. She was watching from her side of the fence when she said, "Patricia, honey, are you all right? You seem different lately." "Different how?" "Quieter, like you're walking on eggshells in your own home." I straightened up, my knees protesting. "Helen, if something were to happen, if I needed you to remember conversations or things you'd observed, would you be willing to help me?" Her eyes sharpened. Helen was 75 and sharp as a tack. "What's going on?" I told her. "Not everything, but enough." She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "I've been watching. I've seen how they treat you, like you're in their way." She paused. "Whatever you're planning, I'm on your side. I might need you to make a statement about what you've observed. You just say when." I hugged her, something I hadn't done in months. It felt good to have an ally. The commercial developer, James Chen, came to see the property on a Tuesday morning. I'd arranged it when I knew everyone would be out. He was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with an efficient manner I appreciated. "Mrs. Brennan, I'll be direct. This location is perfect for what my client has in mind. Mixed-use development. The neighborhood's zoning is changing." He walked through the house, making notes. "I can offer you $825,000 cash, closing in 3 weeks. $825,000, $75,000 more than market value." "Why so much?" I asked. "Speed and certainty. My client needs this property and you're motivated to sell quickly. It's worth it to both of us." He extended his hand. "Do we have a deal?" I thought about Carl, about the life we'd built here, about the fact that this house had already been stolen from me in every way that mattered. "We have a deal," I said. That afternoon, I signed the papers. The closing was set for April 15th, 33 days away. Robert had timed the eviction notice to expire April 12th. They'll have 3 days after the eviction notice expires to get out before the new owner takes possession, Robert explained. "But they won't know about the sale. The notice will seem like you're just reclaiming your space." "And if they refuse to leave? That's when it gets interesting." I served the eviction notice on March 13th, exactly 30 days before April the 12th. I did it myself, with Helen and Robert present as witnesses. I walked into the living room where Jessica was scrolling through her phone and Derek was watching a basketball game on my television. "I need you to read this," I said, handing Jessica the envelope. She didn't even look up. "What is it?" "It's a formal notice to vacate the property. You have 30 days. That got their attention. Derek muted the TV. Jessica's head snapped up. "What are you talking about?" Jessica said, her voice sharp. "I'm asking you to leave. You said this was temporary. It's been over a year. It's time." Derek stood up. "You can't just kick us out. We have rights." "Actually, you don't." I kept my voice calm. "You're not on the lease because there is no lease. You're not on the deed. This is my house, and I'm giving you legal notice to vacate within 30 days. Jessica opened the envelope, her hands shaking. Whether from anger or shock, I couldn't tell. She read it, her face going pale, then red. Are you insane? Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern. You're both employed adults. You'll figure it out. Mom, this is crazy. You can't live here alone. You need us. No, Jessica. I don't need you. You need me. You need my house and my utilities and my free rent. But I'm done. Derek stepped forward and Robert moved slightly, positioning himself between us. You're making a huge mistake, Patricia. We're family. Family doesn't tell me I'm lucky to sleep in my own house. Jessica's eyes widened. She remembered. I didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant every word. I turned to leave, then stopped. Robert is my attorney. All communication goes through him now. You have 30 days. The next 3 weeks were hell. They tried everything. First came the apologies. Jessica crying, saying she'd been stressed. She hadn't meant it. Derek promising they'd pay rent, they'd contribute more, they'd respect my space. It's too late, I told them. Then came the anger. Doors slamming. Derek shouting about how ungrateful I was after everything they'd done for me. Jessica calling me vindictive and cruel. I documented every outburst. Then came the manipulation. They brought the kids into it. Brandon and Kylie, suddenly sweet and helpful, asking if they'd done something wrong. We love you, Grandma, Kylie said, tears in her eyes. That hurt. But I knew it wasn't their idea. This isn't about you, I told them. This is about your parents' choices. They tried to get my other children involved. My son Michael called from Denver, confused. Mom, Jess says you're kicking them out. What's going on? I explained calmly and completely. When I finished, there was a long silence. Jesus, Mom, I had no idea it was that bad. They didn't want anyone to know. Do you need help? Money? A place to stay? I'm fine, honey, but thank you for asking. My youngest, Sarah, called next. She was less diplomatic. I told Jess this was a bad idea from the start. She never listens. At least I had 2 out of 3. As the deadline approached, I started making my final preparations, things they couldn't see, couldn't anticipate. I'd already opened a new bank account at a different institution and transferred most of my money there. I kept the old account open with just enough to avoid suspicion. I'd changed my mailing address to a P.O. box. I'd contacted every utility company. On April 13th, one day after the eviction deadline, the electricity, water, gas, and internet would all be switched into Jessica and Derek's names, not shut off, just transferred. Let them deal with the bills they'd been running up. I'd also done something they'd never expect. I'd contacted Derek's business partners. Turned out that LLC he'd registered at my address, it was operating without proper licensing. I made sure the relevant authorities received an anonymous tip. Was it petty? Maybe. But I was 71 years old and done playing nice. I also hired a moving company. Everything I wanted to keep, Carl's things, my photo albums, my mother's china, the furniture that actually mattered, was packed and put into storage. The movers came on a Wednesday when everyone was out. Jessica noticed that evening, "Where's Dad's desk and the bookshelf?" "I'm downsizing," I said simply. "You can't just take furniture out of the house." "My furniture. My house. I can do exactly that." She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd only ever seen the version of me she wanted. The accommodating mother, the widow who needed managing, the old woman who'd be grateful for whatever scraps of dignity they allowed her. April 12th arrived. Their deadline. They hadn't moved a single box. That morning, Derek confronted me in the kitchen. "We're not leaving." "Then you'll be removed." "You can't evict us. We'll fight this. We'll take you to court. We'll drag this out for months." I poured my coffee steady-handed. "Do what you need to do." But I knew something he didn't. The closing was in 3 days. On April 15th at 10 a.m., I would sign the final papers. James Chen would take possession. The house would no longer be mine. And, therefore, no longer available for them to squat in. They went to work that morning, confident they'd called my bluff. Brandon and Kylie went to school. The house was empty. At 9:30 a.m., I left for Robert's office with 2 suitcases, everything I still needed. Helen drove me. We didn't speak much. What was there to say? At Robert's office, we went over everything one final time. "You understand what's going to happen?" he asked. "I understand." "You're sure?" "Last chance to change your mind." I thought about Jessica's sneer, Derek's condescension, the way they'd erased me from my own life, one small theft at a time. Before I can continue with what happened next, I need to ask you something. If this story is resonating with you, if you understand what it feels like to become invisible in your own life, please hit that subscribe button. I need to know there are others out there who understand, who felt this, who won't let themselves be erased. Thank you. Now, let me tell you what happened when they came home. The closing on April 15th took 45 minutes. I signed my name 23 times. I counted. Each signature felt like taking back a piece of myself. James Chen shook my hand. "The property is mine as of this moment. My team will be there at 3 p.m. to change the locks and post the notice of ownership transfer." "And you'll have security?" "Already arranged. Anyone who shows up will be told to contact my attorney." He paused. "Mrs. Brennan, I know this wasn't easy. For what it's worth, you did the right thing." I wasn't sure if I'd done the right thing, but I'd done the necessary thing. Robert had arranged everything else. The utility switched to Jessica and Derek's names that morning. They'd get the notifications on their phones, probably around lunchtime. The sheriff's department had been notified of the situation and agreed to send a deputy to keep the peace when the new owners took possession. I went to lunch with Robert and Martha at a quiet restaurant downtown. I ordered shrimp and grits, Carl's favorite. I barely tasted them. At 2:45 p.m., my phone started ringing. Jessica. I didn't answer. It rang again, and again. Then Derek called, then Jessica again. Finally, a text from Jessica. "Mom, where are you? The power company says we're responsible for the account now, and Derek's credit card isn't working. Call me." I turned off my phone. At 3:30, Robert's phone rang. His expression stayed neutral as he listened. "I see. Yes. No, she's aware. Yes, that's correct. No, there's no mistake." He paused. "Sir, I'd suggest you speak to your attorney. This is a civil matter. My client has broken no laws." He hung up. "Derek?" I asked. "Very angry, Derek. They're at the house. The locks are changed. There's a security guard. James Chen's attorney is there with the paperwork. And Derek is threatening to call the police. The attorney suggested he do exactly that. They'd explain how property ownership works." I imagined them standing on the front porch. My front porch, except it wasn't mine anymore. It wasn't theirs. It never had been theirs. My phone buzzed. I turned it back on. A voicemail from Jessica. I played it on speaker. "Mom, what the hell is happening? Some Chinese guy says he owns the house now. He has paperwork saying you sold it? This is insane. Where are you? Call me back right now." Then Derek's voice in the background. "Jesus Christ, she actually sold the house. She sold the fucking house out from under us." The voicemail ended. Martha reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're okay?" Was I? I'd just blown up my daughter's life. I'd made my grandchildren technically homeless. I'd burned bridges that could never be rebuilt. But I'd also taken back my power. I'd stopped being a victim in my own story. "I'm okay," I said. My phone rang again. This time it was Sarah, my youngest. I answered. "Mom? Oh my God, Mom, are you all right? Jessica just called me screaming about you selling the house. What's going on?" "It's a long story, honey." "Are you safe? Where are you?" "I'm safe. I'm with Robert Morrison and his wife." "The lawyer? Mom, what happened?" I told Sarah everything. Unlike Jessica, she listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then, "Holy shit, Mom." "Sarah? No, I mean it. Holy shit, you actually did it." She laughed, a sound that was half shock, half admiration. Jessica is losing her mind. She called me demanding I talk sense into you. She wants me to help them sue you. And I told her she got exactly what she deserved. Then she called me a traitor and hung up on me. Despite everything, I smiled. Thank you for understanding. Mom, I'm proud of you, seriously. You put up with their crap for over a year. You tried to be patient. They took advantage. She paused. Where are you going to live? I found a beautiful condo in Mount Pleasant. 2 bedrooms, water view, gated community. I close on it next week. You already bought another place? I've been planning this for a while, honey. Apparently. She laughed again. Can I come visit? Anytime you want. Over the next few hours, the full scope of what I'd done became clear to Jessica and Derek, the utilities in their names. Derek's business registration suddenly flagged for operating without proper licensing from my address. The house sold, their belongings still inside, but no legal right to access them without the new owner's permission. James Chen, to his credit, was reasonable. He gave them 72 hours to remove their belongings, supervised by his security team. After that, everything left behind would be considered abandoned. They had 3 days to pack up a year's worth of life. Michael called that evening. Mom, I just got off the phone with Jessica. She's devastated. I imagine she is. She says you blindsided her, that you didn't give her a chance to make things right. Michael, I gave her a year. I gave her dozens of chances. She told me I was lucky to sleep in my own house. He sighed. She said that? She did. Derek agreed with her. Another long silence. I don't know what to say, Mom. It's a lot. It is, and I'm sorry you're in the middle of it, but I'm not sorry for what I did. I'm not asking you to be. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you were incredibly patient. More patient than I would have been. Thank you, honey. But Mom, Jessica is still your daughter. Those are still your grandchildren. I know that. So what happens now? That was the question, wasn't it? What happens when you burn down your life to save yourself? I don't know, I admitted. But I couldn't keep living the way I was living. I was disappearing. Do you understand? Yeah, he said softly. Yeah, I do. The next 3 days were chaos I didn't have to witness. Robert received multiple calls from Jessica and Derek's hastily hired attorney. There were threats of lawsuits, all empty. I'd done everything by the book. James Chen reported that they'd removed their belongings on the final day, looking shocked and defeated. The house was theirs now, and within weeks, it would be demolished for the new development. I moved into my new condo on April 23rd. 2 bedrooms, 1,400 square feet, with a balcony overlooking the marsh. The building had a gym, a pool, and a community room where residents gathered for book clubs and card games. My neighbors were mostly retirees like me, people who'd earned their peace. For the first time in over a year, I could breathe. I set up Carl's desk in the 2nd bedroom, along with our photo albums and his favorite chair. I hung our wedding picture in the hallway. I arranged my mother's china in the built-in cabinet. I made the space mine, ours. In a way, the house on Palmetto Street had stopped being the moment Jessica said I was lucky to sleep there. Sarah visited the 2nd week. She brought wine and takeout, and we sat on the balcony watching the sun set over the water. It's beautiful, Mom, she said. Really beautiful. It feels right, I told her. Have you heard from Jessica? No, have you? She called once. She's renting a house in Goose Creek. She said it's much smaller than what they're used to, and the kids hate it. Sarah took a sip of wine. She wanted me to tell you that you ruined their lives. And what did you say? I said she ruined her own life by taking you for granted. Sarah looked at me. She hung up on me again. We're not speaking. I'm sorry, honey. Don't be. She needs to understand that actions have consequences. She's 50 years old, Mom. If she hasn't figured that out by now, that's on her. Michael called a few weeks later. I wanted to let you know. I'm coming to Charleston for work next month. Can I see your new place? Of course. And Mom? I ran into one of Jessica's friends at the grocery store. Apparently, the story's gotten around. He paused. People are talking about how you sold the house out from under them. My stomach tightened. What are they saying? Honestly, most people think it's hilarious. There's some gossip about what terrible house guests they were, how they took advantage. Jessica's not getting much sympathy. She's still my daughter, Michael. I know. But maybe she needed this wake-up call. Maybe she did. Or maybe we were both just broken now, in different ways. The kids, Brandon and Kylie, that was harder. They hadn't asked to be caught in the middle. I sent them cards with money for their birthdays, but I didn't hear back. Jessica had probably poisoned them against me. Or maybe they were just being teenagers, and I was one more adult who disappointed them. Either way, it hurt. But here's what I learned in those first few months in my new home. I could survive the hurt. I could survive the guilt and the loss and the knowledge that I'd blown up my family to save myself. Because the alternative, continuing to shrink myself, to disappear one small indignity at a time, that would have killed me. Not quickly, but slowly, like a poison working through your veins. I chose life, my life, on my terms. Was it selfish? Probably. Was it necessary? Absolutely. It's been 8 months now since I sold the house, 8 months since I stood on the front porch for the last time and walked away from 43 years of memories, 8 months since I chose myself. Helen visits every Tuesday. We have lunch on my balcony and catch up on neighborhood gossip. She tells me about the construction where my house used to be. They're building a mixed-use development with shops on the ground floor and apartments above. She says it's coming along nicely. I don't ask about Jessica. Helen doesn't offer. Sarah comes once a month, usually bringing her husband and their 2 kids, my other grandchildren, the ones who still talk to me. We make dinner together and they ask if they can spend the night in the guest room. It's not the big house with the yard, but it's enough. Michael visited twice. The last time we sat on the balcony with bourbon, Carl's favorite, and he said, "I'm proud of you, Mom. I know that probably sounds weird given everything, but I am." "Thank you, honey. Jessica will come around eventually, or she won't, but you did what you had to do." "I'm not sure Jessica will come around. I'm not sure I need her to." That sounds harsh, even to my own ears, but it's true. I spent 71 years putting everyone else first. My parents, my husband, my children. I spent a lifetime shrinking myself to make room for other people's needs and wants and convenience. This is the first time in my life I've chosen me. Last week, I joined the book club in my building. We're reading mysteries, which I love. I signed up for the water aerobics class that meets 3 mornings a week. I'm learning to paint at the community center, something I always wanted to try but never had time for. I'm building a life, not the life I planned when Carl and I bought that house in 1982, not the life I imagined when I was raising 3 children and dreaming about grandchildren and family holidays, but a life nonetheless. Is it lonely sometimes? Yes. Do I wish things had turned out differently? Of course. But I don't regret what I did, not for a second. I'm Patricia Brennan. I'm 71 years old. I'm a widow, a mother, a grandmother, and a woman who finally learned that you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. The house on Palmetto Street is gone now, replaced by something new and modern that serves a purpose I'll never see. But I'm still here. I'm still standing. I'm still waking up every morning in a home that's mine, where nobody tells me I'm lucky to sleep, where nobody treats me like I'm in the way. I sold the house. I terminated the leases. I redirected the bills. I locked them out and forced them to face the consequences of their choices. And you know what? I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because the only person who can save you is yourself. And sometimes, saving yourself means burning everything down and starting over. Sometimes, the only way to reclaim your life is to take it back, deed by deed, signature by signature, locked door by locked door. And I did.